For the past 3 months, at our weekly Lunch and Learn class, we've been going through a collection of stories about Rabbi Israel Baal Shem Tov, lovingly called the Best. So we've been reading the best of the best. He was born in 1700 and lived in the Ukrainian areas of Poland, as it was just a few generations after the notorious Chmelniki pogroms, in which mobs of anti-Semites murdered tens of thousands of Jews. The people longed for a connection to God that was loving and affirming. Who needs stern rebukes and fire and brimstone from rabbis when all around them, all they saw was that which was hellish? So the Best taught through stories, and he emphasized joy. Some of the stories were sweet, some were surprising, many were quite strange. Regardless, they were always hopeful. Once, one of his disciples was suffering from a great number of personal setbacks. So the Baal Shem Tov said to him, "When you experience afflictions, you should recognize God behind the mask." It's like a father, he went on to explain. It's like a father who is playing with his little child by putting on a frightening mask to see if he'll recognize him. The boy is scared, but when he realizes it's his father, he cries out, "Father, Father!" Then the father, seeing that the child is afraid, takes off the mask and embraces the child. Once the child sees that it was his loving father behind the mask all the time, he's no longer afraid. The Best continued, "When you're suffering, understand that there's nothing in all of existence but God. All life, all existence is of God. Yes, some things seem to be frightening in this world, but all you have to do is call out, 'Abba, Abba, Father, Father, Avinu Malkeinu, oh God,' and your suffering and distress will be removed. But if a person does not realize that everything is of God, when afflictions come, he will seek only worldly means and remedies to escape them, and then his troubles will remain. I tell you," the Best concluded, "I tell you, when you realize that God is everywhere and there's nothing separating you from God, all your fears and your troubles will disappear." This is not to say that we will not have times in which we suffer. As frail, mortal, and vulnerable beings, we hurt and grieve and mourn. We suffer loss and disappointment. But the pain we feel is not a punishment. It is not something that strikes us from the outside. Rather, we are of God, and all that we experience connects us with eternity. For 7 months, we've suffered the consequences of this terrible plague. We have been isolated from loved ones. We have seen businesses crumble. We have missed precious life cycle events. We have even been denied the comfort from a proper Shiva. When our loved ones died, instead of homes crowded with loved ones, sharing stories on sofas and on chairs squeezed together, instead we Zoom. We have Zoom sessions with services posted on the screen share and people taking turns unmuting. Thank God for the Zoom sessions. But man, it's not the same. When we first started the Zoom Shivas, some families were reluctant. They would say, "If no one can come by, why bother at all?" And some worried about the jerks or some unwelcome intruders ruining the experience. Some worried that no one would want to join such a virtual Shiva. Literally, I was told, they won't come without platters of lox and pastrami. It did not take a great deal of explanation for me to convince the families to at least give it a try. I promised that though it's not the same, at least friends and loved ones from all over the country, even around the world, could tune in and share. In a traditional Shiva, most of them would never have been able to join in, but now they can. Besides which, without the noisy distractions of people eating and drinking and kibitzing with side conversation, the Zoom Shiva gatherings would actually be quite meaningful and focused. So they believed me, and they tuned in. The screen was, as you know, it's divided into little boxes that resemble the Hollywood squares on steroids. Some squares had a familiar face or two. Others showed only the name of a participant, the name put up there instead of the face. Etiquette, I've been told, Zoom etiquette says that it's most polite and best practice to show your actual face. And I told that to some loved ones. And my mom said that if she hasn't had time to do her hair and makeup, etiquette can go take a hike. She's putting her name up there and that's it. Well, most of the faces we can look at, and we saw loved ones and friends as they tuned into those virtual Shivas and memorials. We also saw their compassion, tears and tributes, tender stories and fun memories brought laughter and sighs that comforted our broken hearts. What some had worried was going to be a frightening ordeal turned into a loving embrace. On the screen, instead of frightening masks, we saw faces of those who love us. As we concluded his stories last week, we read about the best's final days of life. At first, his disciples all crowded around his deathbed. Some promised to pray with all their hearts and souls for his recovery. So the Baal Shem Tov sent them home, or sent them on missions. He didn't want them to devote their energies to his physical recovery. He wanted them to devote their passion, devotion, skills, and strength to furthering that which he valued most in life, the well-being and the faith of the children of Israel, his family and ours. It's unknown what exactly happens after we die. Yes, the body returns to the earth and the soul is bound up with God. But what does the soul experience? The unknown can be frightening, like a fearful mask that conceals. We're afraid of that which is beyond our knowledge and control. But there is no mask. It's all God. And our connection with our loved ones who have passed away remains with us in our hearts, in our minds, in our souls. All that is remains a part of this eternity. It remains a part of this eternity. A part of us lives with God and with us and our loved ones, as long as we remember.